real estate is such a humbling business. It will bring you back to your knees quickly if you don't just do the basic stuff every single time, every single house. Like that water heater did not care that we had done hundreds of rehabs leading up to that one. It didn't care. It was ready to go and it was its time. So, honestly, it shouldn't have busted at 12 years, but it did.
There's no risk.
And she moved a homeless guy in, and then she bit him, and
There's no risk.
You don't really expect somebody to go burn down their own place.
You guys want mailbox money?
Enough water accumulates on second floor, boom, collapses into the first floor.
Being a landlord is so easy.
Just get into real estate, baby.
I'm Joel Broyles. I'm with White Rock SFR in Dallas, Texas. I have been a broker for about 20 years and really focused in single-family rental space since 2012, almost exclusively. I was the vice president of Texas acquisitions and managing broker for a publicly traded single-family REIT for several years. We helped build out a large portfolio of single-family rentals kind of in the early days of the asset class, and subsequently broke away from them and started my own business and have been doing the same thing, kind of this institutional quality single-family rental acquisition, CapEx rehab management for high net worth families, I would say kind of family office and high net worth individuals since then. So we've built out several hundred more single-family rental investments. And so I've learned a lot over that period of time doing hundreds of these here in the North Texas area. So one of the things that's most nerve-wracking and I should also say, I also own property here in North Texas. So one of the more nerve-wracking things about being a landlord is water. And so water doesn't seem like, as dramatic as a fire, which we also had. But water can be really one of the most challenging problems in a property. So just to highlight one example of this was roughly 2016. We were in the middle of a large acquisition push. We were doing probably at that point in time, maybe 15 or so houses a month on the buy side and also on the rehab CapEx piece. So we're in the middle of this one property in Fort Worth, about 2,600 square feet, 2-story, good little house. And we're in the middle of a rehab. It was summer, which if you know anything about Texas in the summer, it is hot. So we were in the middle of rehab. On a Saturday, unbeknownst to us, the water heater, which was on the second floor laundry areas are not super common, but they're not totally uncommon. This house was built in the early 2000s, kind of one of those during the new construction boom, which kind of hit the whole country, but definitely here in North Texas, that's kind of the product we're talking about. So it's a relatively new house, maybe at that point in time, only 12, 15 years old, something like that, but not super old. Nonetheless, rehabbing this thing, water heater, second floor on a Saturday, midsummer, and we're in the big push. So we've got a lot of rehab projects going on at the same time. And Monday morning, I get a phone call from one of my GCs and he says, "Joel, we have a problem." And that's never a great phone call to get, especially on a Monday morning. I said, "What do we have?" And he says, "Hey, we had a water heater explode, second floor. Probably happened on a Saturday because we were in there on a Friday. Nobody's been in the house for the last 2 days. So water heater broke." And typically the way that you would have this as a landlord is you would have basically an alarm that sits in the drip pan. That alarm that sits in the drip pan under the water heater, and there's a 50-gallon tank, would provide a shutoff mechanism. So if anything happens to the water heater, this alarm gets triggered. When the alarm gets triggered, the water heater shuts off. In the absence of that, which is what we were dealing with, there is no mechanism to tell the water heater to stop pulling water in and heating it up and spitting it out. And so this just happened for 2 days straight. And boom, water is all over this house. So starts on the second floor, like I said, where the laundry room was. The second floor gets flooded. Well, it goes through the second floor ceiling, right? So you got a floor in the second floor, but that's a ceiling from the first floor's point of view. Ceiling takes on too much moisture, boom, collapses the sheetrock. So it goes through the floor, through the sheetrock and the ceiling of the first floor, and now we're flooding the first floor. First floor gets flooded and starts working its way up. So it literally looked like a hurricane had hit this house in the middle of Fort Worth. If you've ever seen a picture of one of those, hurricane hitting like, some part of Florida, kind of looked like that. So we, long story short, figured out, shut the water heater off, get rid of the water in the house. We caught it quickly because the main thing you want to make sure you're not letting happen is any kind of mold, right? So we rip out everything in this house, probably close to 3 feet of sheetrock, at least 3 feet of sheetrock around the perimeter of the first floor. We rip up all the flooring. We ripped up all the sheetrock in the ceiling. It was a pretty massive problem. Basically, we literally had to take it back down to the studs for a good part of the second floor and ceiling, and I would say at least 3 feet, if memory serves, on the first floor. So now we're drying it out. So we were fortunate this didn't happen in the winter. It would have been a tougher problem to solve in the summer. It's hot. I mean, like 100 plus for days after in Texas. So that helped us out a good bit. But really the only thing you can do is just rip everything out and start again. So that's what we did. It took a while before we were sure. We brought in experts and all that to make sure that we'd gotten the moisture out of the house. And then we went back to work and put the house back together. So that was a rehab that was going to be a quick, relatively quick, easy turn. Like I said, it was only maybe a 12 or so year old house where we were just doing some carpet paint and replacing some hardware and updating some appliances. So it took us from $15,000 rehab to, I don't even recall the final number, but it was well over like 70 grand at the time. And at the time, that was a lot of money on rehab. So a water heater is just something that you want to make sure you don't skimp on. You can put a brand new water heater in for, I don't know what part of the country you're in, but here you're probably $1,500 fully installed. And so that's something that you're like, if you're trying to save money on, that's not a place to do it. So water heater should be maintained at least once a year. Here in Texas, we kind of have heavy mineral content in the water. And so you want to clean it out. You want to make sure you're removing any debris and things like that, any mineral buildup. It's a simple thing to drain your water heater once a year and get it clean and maintain it. If it busts on you, it can be a nightmare. And it's also an easy thing to just buy an alarm. We didn't have an alarm in it, which we always do for rented property, but we didn't because we're in the middle of a rehab, like Murphy's Law. So even if you're rehabbing and you think, hey, this water heater is 6 years old, we got another 10 years on this thing or whatever, I would say service it, make sure you have an alarm in it during your rehab, and make sure that you are, paying attention to it throughout the year. So everybody focuses on maintaining the HVACs and making sure that those units are taken care of and the filters are replaced and you're servicing it twice a year. All of that is in place. I rarely hear people talk about servicing water heaters. It just doesn't seem to get nearly the attention, but definitely something that you want to pay attention to. We had to learn that very, very hard lesson. And while we were also juggling, another 15 rehabs in the middle of it. So yeah, that was a pain. That was not a fun lesson to learn, but if that's helpful, make sure you're maintaining your water heaters and doing that with at least annual frequency.